Can you guys hear us now?
Okay, very good. So I guess, so any board members attending online, if there's anyone participating with you at your location, can you please identify them?
None with me.
Seeing none, thank you.
Moving on to item 2, approval of the regular meeting minutes of November 10th. Was previously circulated. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Carol.
Second.
Thanks, Ron. Any discussion? Any additions or deletions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Executive session, I guess we're gonna wait for executive session to approve those minutes. Moving on to item 3A. Before we start, I just want to mention that we apologize, but item 3B will be deferred to another meeting. So if you're here to provide public testimony or provide information for that, then that will be deferred to another meeting. Before we start, I guess, Francis, can you go over the rules for public testimony?
Happy to, Chairman. Anyone wishing to provide oral testimony should indicate that to the chair. Oral testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, subject to the discretion of the chair. Your oral testimony must be on a matter that is on the board agenda. Therefore, as you begin your oral testimony, you should identify yourself and spell your name for the record. After 3 minutes, I will call time. You will have another 15 seconds to conclude your testimony. Please note that this opportunity is for you to communicate your concerns to us. If you ask questions during your oral testimony, neither the board nor staff is required to respond or answer your questions. Finally, for anyone wishing to submit written testimony, instructions for doing so are on the front page of the agenda under the section entitled Public Testimony. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter.
Thank you, Francis. Moving on to item 3A. This is to approve proposed chapter 15-304, administration of federal programs for administrative rules governing and the administration of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Home Investment Partnerships Program, National Housing Trust Fund Program, and other non-competitive grant programs. Is there anyone want to give public testimony on this agenda item? No? Okay. Okay, so I need a motion, yeah. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thanks, Gary. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, thanks.
Hi, good morning. My name is Cynthia Nairos. I am a housing planner with HHFDC. We are requesting board approval for these new rules, Chapter 15-304, Administration of Federal Programs, Hawaii Administrative Rules. Here's some backgrounds. HHFDC is the grantee for 2 federal HUD programs, Home Investment Partnerships and Housing Trust Fund. This means that HHFDC is responsible for allocating the grant funds and for ensuring that the program recipients comply with the fund's conditions. Section 201H-16B Hawaii Revised Statutes requires that HHFDC adopt necessary rules pursuant to Chapter 91 HRS. This is the Hawaii Administrative Procedure Act to carry out any federal program. Some of you who were here in 2020 may remember that the board approved these rules back in August 2020. However, it stalled due to a glitch in the Hawaii Administrative Rules SharePoint during the COVID-19 pandemic. The rules authorize HHFDC to do 3 main things. 1, delegate the day-to-day administrative authority for the programs to the executive director. 2, require and enforce compliance with all applicable federal laws and regulations as a condition of receipt of funds. 3, undertake compliance monitoring and to procure the services of third-party monitoring contractors. So basically, we recommend that the board approve the new rules for chapter 15-304 so we can proceed with the public hearing. I'm available if there's any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
This is correction to make for the record.
Oh, yes, for action, instead of saying that there is a section by section breakdown, we're just going to say that we're going to do just the major provisions.
Okay. All right, thanks. No questions from the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3C. This is to authorize an application for exemption from statutes, ordinance, and rule pursuant to section 21H-38 for a revised statutes and approve one, the certification of Salt Lake Housing LP or other successor entity approved by the executive director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-07-24 for administrative rules, and two, the project proposal, and three, execution of the development documents for the Kaho'aopili rental or for sale project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TMK 111061003. Is there anyone that wants to give any public testimony on this agendized item? Nope. All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Harold. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Good morning. My name is Albert Palmer. I'm the Housing Development Specialist here at HHFDC. So this for action is for the Kaho'aopili project in Salt Lake. The applicant, Salt Lake Housing LP, is a single asset entity specifically to develop the projects. The developer is High Ridge Costa Development Company with co-developer Forum Partners. High Ridge Costa is a private company that has developed affordable housing and LIHTC syndication. About 30,000 units developed since 1994 throughout the US and Puerto Rico. Recent projects with HHFDC include Kapolei Mixed Use 1 and 2, Kokua Senior under construction in Honolulu in the corner of Beretania and Alakea, and Liloa Hale on Maui. The developer is seeking approval of the project as either rental or for sale. The total number of units is 190. And if it's developed as rental, the concept is it would be 100% affordable rental and they would apply for HHFDC financing. However, if they don't receive financing award, they may elect instead to develop the project as for sale with 60% affordable units and 40% market units. The breakdown of affordability mix for the two scenarios, rental and for sale, is listed in section 2 facts of the for action. The proposed budget for the project is approximately 97 million, and the budget and sources of funds are shown in more detail on pages 3 and 4 of the for action. The project includes several sustainability features such as a photovoltaic array, Energy Star appliances, low flow plumbing fixtures, and large operable windows to maximize daylight. The schedule for the project anticipates construction commencing in September 2024 and completing in September 2026. And the schedule may change depending on financing awards. HHFDC approved an exemption from preparing an environmental assessment, which was published in the October 8th, 2022 edition of the environmental notice. On June 9th, 2022, the developer presented the project to the Aliamanu Salt Lake Neighborhood Board. The requested 201H exemptions include exemptions from fees, park dedication requirements, and exemptions from provisions of the land use ordinance of Honolulu pertaining to maximum floor area ratio, lot coverage, yard setbacks, height setbacks, maximum height, and minimum bicycle parking. The complete list of the 201H exemptions requested are in Exhibit G of the for action. The developer is also requesting an exemption from the city's affordable housing requirement and to utilize HHFDC's 201H affordable housing program instead. A summary of comments received from review agencies is listed in Exhibit H. of the 4 action. And some of the comments are discussed in section 3R of the 4 action on pages 5 and 6. Staff's recommendation is that the Board of Directors authorize the application for exemptions from statutes, ordinances, and rules pursuant to section 201H38, Hawaii revised statutes, and approve the following. The applicant or other successor entity approved by the Executive Director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 HAR. Development of the project with the proposed exemptions from statutes, ordinances, and rules as recommended for approval herein pursuant to section 201H38 Hawaii revised statutes. Development of the project either as rental or for sale as described in this 4 action. Execution of any development agreement and restrictions for such exemptions as required by the Executive Director. And authorize the Executive Director to take all actions necessary to effectuate the purposes of this 4 action. Subject to the following: approval with or without modification by the Honolulu City Council pursuant to section 201H38 HRS. Exemptions from the Board of Water Supplies rules and regulations are subject to the approval of BWS. Execution of a development agreement and restrictions within 6 months from the date of this approval unless otherwise extended at the sole discretion of the Executive Director. The development agreement will include deadlines for commencement and completion of construction. Approval as to form of the applicable development documents and restrictions by the Department of the Attorney General and execution by the Executive Director. The project shall not be sold, transferred, or otherwise used to satisfy the reserved housing or affordable housing requirement for any other project at any other location. And compliance with all applicable laws, rules, regulations, and such other terms and conditions as may be required by the Executive Director. Staff would like to note that the City Council of Honolulu may make modifications to the project, including the exemptions or the affordability levels, but that no further action from the board will be required. And we do have representatives from the developer here with us today who are available to answer any questions about the project.
All right, thanks. Any questions?
I have a question. I think it's for the developer, though. Maybe 2 questions, actually.
Aloha and good morning.
Good morning. Back in June, you met with the Aliomanu Salt Lake Foster Village Airport Neighborhood Board, and I was just wondering if you could share how the project was received by the board and if there was any opposition from the community expressed.
No opposition from the community expressed. The board received the project very well. They were very excited about it. One particular board member had some questions as to affordability and how the affordability may be maintained, and others which we addressed also in a subsequent meeting after the meeting with that particular board member, but they were fully satisfied and understood the differences between what they were asking and what was being presented. So in whole, at the end, it was very well received by the entire board.
Okay, thanks. Can I ask one more?
Yeah, speak your name for the record, please.
My apologies. Aloha, good morning. Mo Mohana, President, High Ridge Costa.
Good morning, Chris Duker, Forum Partners. And Chris Arias, sorry if I'm late. Apparently people want to talk to me on the way out of the door. Apparently, I apologize for being late.
Thanks, Chris.
My second question, it's mentioned that you're going to decide after the approval of exemptions whether or not to do 100% affordable rental or like a 60-40, a for sale rental type of project. And the Department of Parks and Recreation in their comments mentioned that if you were to develop 60% affordable for sale and 40% rentals, you would be asked to expand the project's recreational spaces, if I assume that that's possible, or to commit to improving parks in the project's vicinity. And do you have a
So let's start
plan
with,
for that?
yeah,
Or
let's start with the why. I think that would answer
Okay.
the bigger and broader
Okay.
question, and really the credit goes to our partner, Chris Duper, in this. As we're working in today's environment, which we are oversubscribed in bonds for low-income housing tax credits. What we are trying to do as an affordable housing developer that wants to basically develop to the community, and on a little tangent, we're asked a lot of questions. Okay, well, we approved it. When is this going to happen? Why isn't it happening? Why did you wait a year? Why is it 2 years? Why is it 3 years? Is it the cycle? So our objective was from the beginning, as we noticed historically, people would try to do the affordable 60% AMI and lower, which is our preference, and that is our goal, and that is what we are going towards. But as we go and work through the community, and they ask, okay, why is it taking so long? We thought, let's be transparent about this upfront. What is our preference? Our preference is absolutely the rental housing 60% AMI tax exempt bond program. If that doesn't happen, the project is fully approved. We can then pivot to the affordable for sale program. So that is the reasoning behind it. So it's not a matter, it's going to get approved and we're going to decide which one. I can tell you today which one we want. We want the 60%. But if after a round or two, which as you know means 2 years out, we can't get it, then we went to the community, we've developed the plans. What is it that we can do? Particularly with the requirement that you have to go to HHFDC with a 201H approved. So you spend the money, spend the investment. Not only do we owe it to ourselves, but owe it to the community to have alternative results, alternative executions. With new executions coming along, I will assure you, we'll see 3 options next time, not just 2. But that's what we have to become. We have to really become, versatile, and we have to diversify our ability to develop affordable housing. Long answer to your question, sir. The answer is yes. We will look within the amenities that are there in the deck area and the upper area that for the affordable for sale is a significant added cost, but we can work within the plan that we have. And if it all else fails, obviously go off site. But right now, our primary focus is that 60% and below need, but we can pivot and we will address the park requirement in full.
Thank you.
Sorry for a very long answer. My apologies.
All right, yeah, no, good answer. Anyone else?
Chair,
Yeah.
I would also like to add that given the bond constraints that we're facing, a lot of the developers today now have to be ready to pivot because, the demand for our resources is double what we have at the minimum. So I really appreciate High-Ridge Costa's ability to pivot and to be flexible on this. I also want to recognize Mike Costa, who happens to be a principal with High-Ridge Costa and is here today. So
He lends us his name. So.
thanks. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Denise.
I mean, Director Macro does that. He opens up a question and then it goes from there to 6. But to that, actually, for example, last year, and we're hoping it continues, you have your tier 2 RHRF program. If you look at your bonds last year, you were capped by the bonds. That would have been the end of production for that year. Because the tier 2 and HHFDC's immediate pivot, actually using that word, you were able to produce significantly larger number of units, affordable units, badly needed that year, within the 60 to 100% range. And that is, I think, how we have to start looking at differing programs. Otherwise, if you stick with one program, one execution, it is capped. To that, I've mentioned it before, but as we're researching more, I want to commend you again for the leadership you've shown in that program. We only finally found one state that has rolled out that program, Idaho. No one else has. So what you've done here is exemplary, and that's exactly when I was not really joking. I said, if we knew what we knew back then, you would have seen a 60% AMI exhibit, you would have seen an affordable for sale exhibit, and you would have seen a 80 to 100% what we're calling not 501c3 tax exempt bond exhibit, pivoting between those so that we're able to move, we're allowed to move at the end of the day, develop much needed affordable housing through the various segments.
Saves us time. We wouldn't have to come back with each subsequent and come through the process again. We can do it all at once and determine where the funding is and how we can move forward as quickly as possible.
And what you're seeing before you from a planning perspective, and I promise I'll speak no more after this, is it's the same number of units, the same parking spaces, with the exception of the parks and recs, pretty much the same amenities. And so that speaks not only to the flexibility, but it speaks to the level of quality that's being developed on an affordable housing 60%, that you can pivot and make it affordable for sale, yet it still works. That's what's being really developed here. That's kind of a different level message. The quality of what's being developed for affordable housing can now also work for affordable for sale. And that's, I think is a good advantage.
All right, thanks. Anyone else? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
all.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service throughout the year, by the way. And happy holidays.
Love to sit down. Okay. So, moving on to item 4A. This is to approve the following actions relating to the leasehold disposition of the Kulia Ikanuku Affordable Rental Housing Project located in Waianae Kai, Waianae, Oahu, KK 185027, parcel 71, 72, and 73. The project. One, the execution of a purchase and sale agreement with Solar Farm Real Estates LLC, the buyer. Two, the certification of the buyer as an eligible developer under section 15-307-24 for administrative rules. And three, making of a dwelling unit revolving fund loan to the buyer. Is there anyone that wants to give any public testimony on this agenda item? Hearing none, can I get a motion, please?
I move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Carol. We have a presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm going to give the Cliff's notes on the project background. Which will take
Sorry,
us-
who are you? I don't.
Oh,
I
my bad.
apologize.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I know you from our files, but not-
Apparently, I'm the director. I don't know, but as of 4 days now, but sorry, I
yeah,
apologize.
Chris Woodard, I'm the chief planner. for
Thank you very much,
HHFDC.
Chris. Oh, great name, Chris. I love it.
So, Cliff's notes through page, middle of page 4. Then we'll go into what the results of the sale are fewer and the deal that we currently have on the table to sell the Kulia project in leasehold. So Kulia Ikanu'u is located in Waianae behind the intermediate school. That's located at the back of HHFDC's 380 unit Uluvehi subdivision. And that's a subdivision of all leasehold townhomes. 72 unit project, studio and 2-bedroom units in 6 buildings. There's an unused dormitory building and there's a separate maintenance building. Each has an attached laundry. There's a 2-story building that was formerly used as a resource center. It's currently over half vacant. And there's an adjacent 1.27 acre vacant lot included with the property. This property was originally known as Kahikolu. It was built in 2008 by the Hawaii Coalition of Christian Churches. And it was built as an emergency, transitional, and permanent affordable housing project at a cost of a little over $16 million. And that was mostly funded by the state, and the Weinberg Foundation kicked in $3 million of that total. So built in 2008, but and it was built subject to a ground lease from us. We ended up taking control of the project in 2013. This is after various issues arose with its ownership and management. The owner, and I'll say this is a little just before my time, so you're getting secondhand information at the moment. The owner was unwilling or refused to hire a licensed real estate broker as a property manager. They declined to submit operating budgets or provide audited financial statements. Also, there were allegations during that time that the ownership was injecting a little too much religion into how it owned and managed the project to the point where it's been illegal. And also at that time, the funding for the homelessness related services was drying up. So we stepped in, took it back from the developer, and the project had no debt on it, and a decision was made to convert it to 100% permanent affordable housing. The project really has struggled since then. There are various reasons that I'll go into in a little bit. The net operating income only finally turned positive in fiscal 2020 and only slightly positive. By that time, our program to dispose of our multifamily, our own owned and operated multifamily affordable rental housing portfolio was substantially complete. So today we have Kulia, 72 units, and we have Nani Opuna on the Big Island with 32 units. Nani Opuna, that sale will hopefully close the first quarter of this calendar year. And we're hoping to proceed with the transaction for Kulia, and then we're done, we're out of the business. Which was planned, because our resources are best directed to facilitating development of affordable housing and financing it. So with the NOI finally having turned positive in 2021, we started making preparations to sell the project. We had a property condition report prepared that indicated minimal near to medium term capital needs. We pulled a diligence war room together, and based on an opinion of value that was provided by CBRE, decision was made to retain them to market the property for sale with us on our behalf, I should say. So that takes us to the middle of page 4, the 4 action. We issued an RFP in February of this year. The basic terms of the lease that was offered to the RFP are summarized in the middle of the page. A 75-year lease. The lease premium to be proposed by an offerer, per board policy, an annual lease rent of $10,000, increasing by 2% per year, and affordability restricted at the 60% AMI level. Despite CBRE's marketing efforts, and they're nationally, they're probably as good as you can get in the affordable housing investment sales business. Despite their efforts, we only received 3 offers. Really, only 2 were legitimate, offers that we could think about proceeding with. And we awarded the RFP to Catholic Charities Hawaii. That was at the June board meeting. Unfortunately, Catholic Charities, by the time of the August board meeting, had decided to back out or step aside from the transaction. And at that August meeting, the board approved rescinding the RFP award that was made to Catholic Charities, canceling the RFP, and entering into direct negotiations with the offerer that scored a second in the RFP evaluation. And that's a partnership that's led by Mark Development. So that was the August 11th board meeting. That buyer group, we basically said, look, we've got a blown deal. They knew that they were the only backup buyer. That was public information. Are you still interested? And they jumped into due diligence. So they, our board meeting was on a Thursday. They started due diligence on Monday, without the benefit of an award from the agency and without the benefit of a purchase and sale agreement. They prepared a draft purchase and sale agreement, got us that within a couple weeks of the board meeting. And we entered into because the PSA was going to take some time to negotiate, and because, frankly, the terms of the transaction were looking fluid at that time, we entered into a due diligence and confidentiality agreement so they could, do full-on due diligence on the project. That agreement expires today, and as of today, the buyer group has completed their due diligence. The buyer group formed an entity called Solar Farm View Estates LLC. So appreciate the sense of humor. Immediately south of this project is the largest solar farm on the island.
That's great.
They have promised not to rename the project should we pursue that. Mark Development, a local company. They've been in business since the 1970s. Pacific Development Group, one of their partners, is California-based, a large developer with a presence in Hawaii. And the third partner in the venture is Skylar Pacific, which is involved in the adaptive reuse of the Hawking Hale project in Chinatown. Attached as Exhibit D to the core action is a letter from the buyer that has outlined the basic terms on which they're willing to proceed with the transaction. And it provides a lot of color on what they discovered and why the terms are what they are. I'll say that their material, the terms that were asked, the terms on the table are materially different from what we were looking at when we were trying to proceed with Catholic Charities, and frankly, what Mark Development and their partners offered during the RFP process. And it's just a result of the due diligence. Purchase price is a nominal $160,000 and change. That's reflective of the project's NOI, which has deteriorated this fiscal year, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Again, due diligence is complete. They'll waive that at PSA execution, subject to obtaining the financing that they requested, and they can close by the end of January. The buyer would engage Mark Development for property management services. And then the capital improvement plan that they have developed is estimated to cost $4.2 million. I mean, some of that's value added money, so it's not like deferred maintenance or capital needs that are just required and won't add value. But this is far above and beyond anything indicated in the property condition report. And we hired a well-known national firm to prepare that report, and so that's a big disappointment. But that $4.2 million, that's to replace all of the exterior stairs. The roof doesn't need to be replaced quite yet, but it needs significant repairs. The exterior painting, quite obvious. The solar water heating system has been inoperable ever since I can remember. There are electric repairs required, landscaping work. We've got fencing to replace because we had a tenant take a joyride at midnight, 1 a.m. Most likely impaired. And they're planning to install a PV system. Some of those improvements will allow the buyer to convert the rental agreements from landlord paid electric to tenant paid electric. And in addition to the improvements that I already mentioned, in the transitional housing buildings, former transitional housing buildings, the buyer plans to convert what are currently 8 studios and 8 2-bedroom units into 8 3-bedroom units. That would better serve the market. The capital improvement plan would be incorporated into the project ground lease and the regulatory grant. Those would both be in the same forms as they were provided in the RFP. One exception, though, that I'm requesting the board to approve, should we approve the larger transaction, in which I neglected to put in here. I mentioned current board policy is to charge a $10,000 annual ground rent. My suggestion is that we, and we're allowed to, under the board policy, with your approval, reduce that to $1 a year, because the property's cash flow, it just doesn't make sense to require that of the project. The RFP did provide for offers to propose what we called an education and counseling services plan component to their proposal. Given the capital needs of the project at this time, we're at NOI basically break even right now. It doesn't make sense to it's not going to take the same form as we initially thought it might, but the buyer will use best efforts to link the property's tenants with services to be provided by nonprofit providers in the area. They do own and manage property out Leeward Coast, and so they do have relationships that they can tap for that purpose. Really, the big news here is the request for a dwelling unit revolving fund loan. The RFP provided that there were to be no HHFDC financing sources used in the transaction, but we're at a different place right now. I think we've got the capital needs that some of which are life safety issues. The exterior stairs have to be replaced. There are also some ADA issues that were uncovered. So the DERF loan is really to make those capital improvements. The requested loan amount is just under $5 million, and for a 10-year term, and really cash flow contingent and at a nominal interest rate. The staff has found that the buyer is an eligible developer under the DERF admin rules. The proposal meets the minimum requirements, and that the use and application of DERF funds are consistent with the admin rules. We have $25 million in DERF funds currently available. And there's a risk assessment of this loan, proposed loan. That takes up the rest of page 8. And I guess the factor to highlight is that the repayment is a somewhat risky prospect due to the current cash flow situation. There's gonna have to be some significant NOI growth over time to be able to, for the buyer to be able to take out the DERF loan. But I can tell you that their plan is, within that 10-year loan term, there's gonna be a need for a real renovation of the project. It'll just be of that age, it'll become of that age during that loan term. And so the likely execution is a LIHTC transaction at that time. Before I get to the recommendation and before we ask the buyer group to make a short presentation and answer questions, and before we go into executive session, as I'll suggest that we do, my backside of the clip notes is called Julia's Problems in a Nutshell. It wasn't designed for permanent housing. I mean, the unit mix, not a great fit for the market. The studios and twos, a lot of demand for family, twos and threes out there. The transitional housing units, they're small, the floor plans are undesirable. Then you get these extra buildings right now. The dormitory, actually, that can be pretty easily repurposed into a management office and a community room. Lots of kids in that property. Give them a foosball table or something to do other than to break into the laundry rooms. The resource center building, however, that's just a drag on NOI. It generates little rental income. It would be a great building to repurpose for a commercial office, but its location doesn't suit it. It's underparked. And this project wasn't designed to be a permanent housing project. It's a small project, only 72 units. It's located out in Waianae. It's just not efficient to operate on a standalone basis. The electricity expenses have gotten out of control between the rate hike and the propensity of the tenants to hook up multiple portable air conditioners without ROK, without a reasonable accommodation approval. The buyer during the due diligence found, tenants with standalone freezers in their apartments. I mean, the electricity expenses alone have wiped out the positive NOI that we had gotten up to like 100 grand a year. We're running 10 grand a month higher in electric than we were a year or so ago. The vacant lot, yes, development potential, but it's limited. There are access issues. So really it's a drag on NOI at this time as well. This project, it's well off Barrington Highway. I mean, you got to go looking for it. And that creates a need for active marketing of the project for rentals, which I think, we don't commonly find here in Hawaii just due to the level of undersupply, but not from here, but everywhere else, an apartment complex it's a retail business. When you see it, oh, I might want to live there. When it's off the beaten path and I don't care what market you're in, you got to spend money and time advertising it. This is just speculation on my part. I mentioned ADA issues. The stairs needing to be replaced. This was developed under emergency proclamation, legal administration. It may have, that may have contributed to design and construction defects. I don't know, speculating. And then we just didn't have a good post takeover plan back in 2013. Project requires very hands-on ownership and management. We cannot provide the level of hands-on ownership required. And we've owned it for 9 years, and the project's condition reflects that today. Part of this is my fault. You know, the plan was get it cash flowing, and then we can bring it to market. Then other things happened in the meantime, right? Pandemic and all that stuff. But in retrospect, that was a bad. In retrospect, we should have brought it to market sooner, let buyers figure it out, you know. But that's not what we did. So we have representatives of the buyer group, not with us today because they all got sick from a trip to the mainland. But they're on Zoom, and Dean Sakata would like to make a short presentation to the board.
Chair, Chris, I just want to make my colleague had a typo in the write-up, page 7, under the third loan request. It says Komahale applied for. So that,
Sounds like I cut and paste from another 4 action.
so it really should read Solar Farm View Estates LLC.
My bad.
applied. So
Thank you for catching
just,
that, Kara.
for the secretary's benefit as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to turn it over to Dean Sakata at this time. He's got a short PowerPoint that he'll share with us. Dean's with Mark Development.
Good morning, Chair Mende and members of the board. I'm Dean Sakata, representing Solar Farm View Estates LLC today.
So Dean, are you set up to share screen?
Muted. We might have lost checks.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to present to the board today. Chris, you did a wonderful presentation. I think you covered just about everything in my presentation today. So thank you. So this Kulia Ikanu project, right? I mean, as Chris pointed out, it's this perfect storm that we're facing, right? You know, you had its historic issues compounded by the effects of COVID, and then for us, you know, acquiring the project, where we see high interest rates, you know, we also see inflation taking hold, and that's turned this project nearly upside down. It has, with COVID, there was those prohibition on evictions, which resulted in a lot of you know, chronically delinquent tenants and a lot of receivables. You know, that's just kind of compounded this problem, and it's brought us to where we are today, and we are where we are. So we wanted to figure out the why, and Chris did a great job of kind of highlighting what we did and what we found out. But we actually went out and inspected each unit. Each building we went around just to see, hey, what condition is this building in, and you know, what do we need to do to you know, make these units livable and make a livable community. And that's kind of our mindset when we're approaching projects. We looked at the systems because your operating expenses were going up and up and up. And, we, contacted our consultants and contractors to check out the solar water heating systems and see if, what options are available. PV is the one thing that, we want to do to help offset operating expenses. And, we worked a lot with Chris as well as the on-site staff to kind of learn more about this project. So this is our approach to Kulia Ikanu. We want to improve livability for our tenants. That's our first and foremost goal. Okay. To do this, I mean, these are really interrelated functions, right? You stabilize operations, preserve the asset. I mean, these three things all come together, and this is how we're approaching Kulia Ikanu. So, scope of work, here's a listing of our scope of work. Chris touched upon it. So, who we are, right? And why, we want to do this and we are capable of doing this. We're a team of, we're developers. Mark Development is a property manager, right? We're owners. And I like to think of it, and this is our approach to developing projects. We develop projects as if, we were property managers, right? And we manage properties as we were owners, right? And the same goes with design, operations, and so forth. And, that's our approach. And, we manage the properties that we own, right? So whatever we do today, we have to live with it, right? And so when we look at Kulia Ikanu, we're taking the same approach of, hey, we're not in it to just turn this around and flip it in 4 or 5 years. We're looking for it to be, this is our project, right? So whatever we do today affects us down the road, and we want to make sure that we do things right. And the other capability we have is, we were able to get here because, we have one of our principals here at Mark Development, Paul Watase. He's an architect who's also an owner, property manager, and developer. So, he went through each unit, each building, and he saw all these things that were highlighted by Chris in the previous slide. And that's how we came up with our plan. So, we really tried to figure out what the issue was, try to figure out what solutions were, and put them all in a package. And that's our proposal to you. So I just want to say thank you, board of directors, executive director, as well as staff, for giving us this opportunity. And, we hope to preserve this great asset. I mean, affordable housing is scarce. And, as much as we want to, build more new affordable housing, I think, we want to help by preserving what we have. Thank you. And myself and Kyle Watase is also on the line, and I think Michael Whitty Oakland may also be on the line. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer or address any issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Just wanted to add, they clearly spent a lot of time and effort on the due diligence and actually kept us informed along the way and kept asking for additional information along the way. So it's not like they kept us in the dark and then dropped the bomb at the end of the due diligence period, because I've had that happen before. But this story developed along the way of the project. So I am appreciative that that's how they conducted their due diligence efforts. So if anyone has questions for me or the buyer group, we could take them now, or if not, my suggestion would be that the board entertain a motion to go into the executive session, and this would be to discuss the acquisition of public property.
All right. We'll go to the executive session.
So moved there, whatever.
Second.
Yes. Oh, okay. Okay, so the Board of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation anticipates convening in an executive session pursuant to section 92-5A3 Hawaii Revised Statute HRS to deliberate the authority of persons designated by the board to conduct negotiations to acquire public property or during the conduct of such negotiations, and section 92-5A4 HRS to consult with the board attorney on questions or issues regarding to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities as it relates to this matter. Any discussion? Because Chris and Gary,
Yes.
right? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in executive session.
So now it's a vote on the action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
run through
Thank
the
you.
recommendation.
Thank you.
Wait, hang on, Chris. Are we back in?
Which is fine.
They cannot see us?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I see you. Okay.
Just don't see you, Esther, that's all.
Okay, yeah, we're back.
Thank you, everybody. We are back in regular session. And before we continue with this, I just want to make mention that we did in executive session approve the minutes of the November 10th executive session. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So staff's recommendation is outlined on page 9 of the 4 actions, which is that the HHFDC board approve the following actions relating to the Kulia Ikinu'u project. The first is the execution of a purchase and sale agreement with Solar Farm View Estates LLC, substantially on the terms described herein. The certification of the buyer as an eligible developer under the DERF administrative rules, and the making of a DERF loan to the buyer substantially on the terms described herein, and authorizing the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary, undertake all actions relating thereto. Any further questions?
All right, thanks, Chris. Any questions or anything else from the board? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. All right, moving on to item number 5. Report from the executive director.
Good morning, board members. I want to welcome our new ex officials. Nice to see Chris Sarayasu here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
I know Louis couldn't join us and Rod is in his stead, but hopefully Louis can join us one day. And then, of course, Nani Maderas, we're very excited to have Nani join us. She's been in the housing industry a long time with Homemade, and of course, all of her involvement with housing with Governor Lingo, former Governor Lingo's administration. For the 80s report, very short, I just wanted to recognize the volume of work by the finance branch this past year. Record number of projects financed, 15 in total. Last year was another banner year. That was 9 projects in total, but 15 projects for a total of over 2,100 units. Total funding award, including LIHTC, private activity bonds and rental housing revolving funds, was over $1 billion. So it really was a banner year. I have to thank the legislature for their wisdom in creating the rental housing revolving fund tier 2 piece of legislation. Without it, we would not be able to keep the housing finance pipeline going because of the bond cap issue. So great work by the finance branch. For development branch, we had quite a number of requests for proposals issued. we had a total of 4, but the Village 8 9-acre remnant parcel in Kapolei, we decided to not do an RFP there. Instead, we are transferring that property, the 9 acres, to DHHL to provide them with an opportunity to develop housing for their beneficiaries. So we're very excited about that partnership as well. 690 Pohukaina, as you know, and then Kahului Civic Center on Maui, we hope will be published in Q1. We're waiting for the Cultural Resource Center and SHPD comments on that one. And then for the Village 8, I'm sorry, for Kapolei Northwest Corner, we hope to publish that RFP in Q1. So that will lead up to 1,000 units, we think,
Awesome.
housing units.
Awesome.
So a lot of
Sorry,
activity.
We RFP'd Northwest Corner way back when, or at least tried to. Craziness under legal administration. Absolutely amazing that's moving forward. That's awesome.
Yeah, there was a sewer capacity
Yeah.
issue that got
Always
resolved.
sewer issues, and
Yeah.
DHHL use a lot of our sewer capacity and the like, and so understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So a lot of work, a lot of good work. You have my report. I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's been a banner year. It's going to be another very busy year for us. But we just want to.
Extremely busy year for HHFDC.
I have a question.
Sure.
For the upcoming legislative session, are we planning to seek additional infusion of tier 2 money?
So we have to discuss it with the new administration first. We haven't had budget discussions yet, so that's why we haven't brought anything, but
And I can share that Governor has made it clear that affordable housing is his #1 priority, ran his platform, right? So HHFDC, DBED will be very important in making this a successful initiative, right? And so there will be money. Don't know how much now. Nani Maderos is working on the plan. She's consolidating people, getting that information together. Though she will explain what is and what the requests are and the like. And so what HHFDC's part will be a very, very big part of it.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question too is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were about 11 applications for tier 2 and you were able to fund 4.
for 142 million.
Okay, so
for
you know, there's
760
others in the
units.
queue. So,
Okay,
you know, if we can gather more resources to try to fund more of those projects in the queue, that would hit that quasi gap group of 80 or 60 to 100% of median income, that would be great.
Yeah, so exactly, that tier 2 targets our workforce at above 60% up to 100% AMI. So that's a critical
Yeah.
missing gap group.
thank you.
So yeah, we look forward to working with the legislature and the new administration on that. The one thing that we did have go through on a bill proposal was a fix to the Affordable Housing Revolving Fund. That's the one that's really centered on the self-help type model. There's a technical fix that needs to happen in the language of the statute because the monies have to be deposited back into that ARP fund instead of the general fund. So that was a general fund infusion, and it has to technically, the language has to be fixed there so that it goes back and it revolves. But other than that, we have to work things out with the new administration.
Okay.
Affordable home ownership.
Right.
Sorry, affordable home, what did I say? Oh, affordable home ownership fund.
So
Thank
it's
you.
self-help.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Short and sweet.
All right, yeah,
Like that.
thank you.
Apparently I have a couple other meetings to attend, so
Anything else?
thank you.
Thank you,
If not,
thank you.
just happy holidays, everybody. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Second. All right. All in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. Good meeting, yeah.